John Connor is living in Los Angeles with foster parents. His mother, Sarah Connor, had been preparing him throughout his childhood for his future role as the human resistance leader against Skynet, the artificial intelligence that will be given control in the United States, nuclear missiles, and initiate a nuclear holocaust on August 29, 1997. Known thereafter as Judgment Day, however, Sarah Connor was arrested and imprisoned at a mental hospital after attempting to bomb a computer factory. In 2029, Skynet sends a new Terminator, designated as T-1000, back in time to kill John. The T-1000 is an advanced prototype made out of liquid metal, and it gives the ability to take on the shape and appearance of almost anything it touches, and to transform its arms into blades and other shapes at will. The T-1000 arrives, kills a policeman, and assumes his identity. Meanwhile, the future John Connor has sent back a reprogrammed Model 101 Terminator to protect his young self. The Terminator and the T-1000 converge on John in the shopping mall, and a chase ensues, after which John and the Terminator escape together on a motorcycle. Fearing that the T-1000 will kill Sarah in order to get to him, John orders the Terminator to help free her. After discovering that the Terminator must follow his orders, they encounter Sarah as she is escaping from the hospital. Although she is initially reluctant to trust the Model 101, after the trio escaped from the T-1000 in a police car, the Terminator informs John and Sarah about Skynet's history. Sarah learns that the man most directly responsible for Skynet's creation is Miles Bennett Dyson, a Cyberdyne systems engineer working on a revolutionary new microprocessor that will form the basis for Skynet. Sarah gathers weapons from an old friend and plans to flee with John to Mexico, but after a nightmare about Judgment Day, she instead sets out to kill Dyson in order to prevent Judgment Day from even occurring. Finding him at his home, she wounds him, but finds herself unable to kill him in front of his family. John and the Terminator arrive and inform Dyson of the future consequences of his work. They learn that much of his research has been reverse engineered from the damaged CPU and the right arm of the previous Terminator who attacked Sarah back in 1984. Convincing him that these items and his designs must be destroyed, they break into Cyberdyne building, retrieve the CPU and the arm, and set explosives to destroy Dyson's lab. The police arrive and Dyson is fatally shot, but he rigs an improvised dead man's switch that detonates the explosives when he dies. The T-1000 relentlessly pursues the surviving trio, eventually cornering them in the steel mill. The T-1000 and Model 101 fight, and the more advanced model seriously damages and shuts down the Model 101. However, unbeknownst to the T-1000, the Model 101 brings itself back online using emergency power. The T-1000 nearly kills John and Sarah, but the Model 101 takes it by surprise and blasts it into a vat of molten steel with a grenade launcher, destroying it. John tosses the arm and the CPU of the original Terminator into the vat as well. As Sarah's expressive relief of that ordeal is over, the Terminator explains that to ensure that this is not used for reverse engineering, it must be destroyed. It asks Sarah to assist in lowering it into the vat of molten steel, since it is unable to self-terminate. Although John begs and eventually orders the Terminator to reconsider, it makes the decision to disobey him, bids them farewell, and hugs tearful John before it is lowered into the vat, giving a final thumbs up as it disappears into the molten steel. For my revision, I chose the parts of Sarah was visited by Kyle in the psychiatric ward, and the scene at the very end of the movie when Sarah was hospitalized. Her deceased husband Kyle appeared to her in a dream. When she saw him, she was emotional and upset because she missed him. In the moment, she felt powerless, weak, and afraid. I rewrote the scene to have her tell Kyle, "I need you so much," as she hopped on top of him to hug and kiss him. She displayed how desperate she felt in this moment. She continues by telling him, "I'm not as strong as I'm supposed to be. I've lost you and John. I'm nothing." Kyle replied, "Remember the message, the future is not set. There is not fate, but what we make for ourselves." They start to walk out of the psychiatric ward together and approach a playground. They stood outside the gated area and observed children swinging and running and sliding. Sarah noticed the toddler laughing and playing on the swing. She asked Kyle if it was John. Kyle smiled and nodded yes. She started speaking to herself, saying, "I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep fighting for us. I will do whatever it takes to be with you again, and I will never leave you, John. I'm so sorry." Once finished, she looked over to where Kyle was standing, but he had disappeared. During the scene, I wanted to convey Sarah's feelings of weakness and powerlessness. This emotion was reversed by the end of the film, as demonstrated by the very last scene. The ending reveals Sarah sitting on a bench looking at a playground, but this time she is not dreaming. She is located on the outside of the gate. And she is not located on the outside of the gate anymore. Instead, she has experienced everything on the inside, representing reality. In the scene, she is 64 years old, and she is watching a man play with his little girl at the swing set in the playground. The audience comes to realize that it is John Connor. She watches the little girl swing and laugh just like John did in her dream. In that moment, she remembers the words she spoke to herself. In this moment, she made eye contact with John. He smiled at her and she smiled back. As they exchanged gestures, Kyle reappears off screen and says to her, "You did it, Sarah." As she looks over to him sitting beside her on the bench, he appears exactly the same. He had not aged at all. She responds, "It's all very surreal. He is doing an amazing job as a father, don't you think?" Kyle responded, "I do, but it's all because of you. You kept your promise to him, but more importantly, you revealed your strength to yourself." During this scene, I wanted the audience to recognize that Sarah had aged, representing the fact that she had moved on in the past, whereas Kyle was still the same age. Also, instead of desperately hugging him like she had done before, she simply grabbed his hand. I wanted to show how Sarah had matured in confidence and strength throughout the movie. She rewrote her fate and made her dreams and promises come true.